Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. Today we're going to take a look at the T Reax 1/35 scale Jagdtiger tracks for Porsche suspension. That was a tongue twister. Alright, so I don't have the box anymore. I threw it away. But it will look something like this, except with tracks and the appropriate description on it. So I'm going to try and keep this video somewhat reasonable in length, but what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the tracks and how they go together and my thoughts on them, since I have already put some together. I've kind of formulated some opinions. So let's talk about the components first. First up, I want to talk a little bit about the components, and there are 5 components that make up a track link. So you have the main component here, the main part of the track that has the cleats and all that stuff on it. Then you have this, I don't know what the proper nomenclature is for these, but I call this one like a connecting link, because this goes in between 2 of these with the guide horns. Then you have 2 types of pins. There's a pin with a, if I can pick this up, with a small head on it, and a pin with a large head. The large headed pin goes external to the vehicle, you know, facing out. The small pin faces towards the hull. Then there's this component here, which further connects the tracks together. And each track takes 3 of these. 1 on the inside, 2 on the outside. And so that would comprise 7 parts to make 1 link. So let's pull 2 more of these out of here, because I am going to demonstrate how these go together. Now, as far as cleanup, there is virtually no cleanup, and I say virtually because occasionally you'll run across something like this. Right here you can see a little bit of residual resin, I guess is what these are made out of, from the printing process. And it's just as simple as knocking it off like that. I mean, super easy. There's no sanding, there's no scraping, none of that stuff. And not all of them have it, but like here's another one here that has it right there. Again, just knock it off. So it's no big deal taking that stuff apart. It's fairly easy. Another nice thing is all of the holes where the pins go through, no cleanup. They're perfectly hollow, and they are hollow all the way through. So 1 pin will go this far, and 1 pin will go this far, whatever. All right, so let's take a look at how these things actually go together. Okay, I've got the first one done here so you can see what it looks like. So this is how I do it. Now hopefully this is going to work, because it's hard doing this on camera. But I place the next link here with the approximate spacing I think it needs for this piece here. Do a quick check, make sure there's none of those little artifacts left over. And then, and it is sighted, there's a narrow one on this end, wide one on this end, so make sure you get it going the right direction. It's kind of hard to put these things together incorrectly. Matter of fact, I don't think you really could. So we got that in place there. Then I take 3 of these little segments here, and they are sighted. There's a narrow side and a wide side. Narrow side goes down like thusly, and thusly. All right, so we got that. So let's see. Okay. Good set of tweezers is pretty crucial here. So then we need 2 large headed pins and 2 small head pins. Now these pins are extremely fragile, so be forewarned. Now the nice thing is, if you break one, they give you extras. So if you break one off in here, if you have something about the same size, you can just push the broken piece out the other end. It's not a big deal. So then you just put the pin in carefully, and you have to wiggle it a little bit to get it to go past, and then bottom it out like that. So let me take the other one. Same thing there. Okay, and I'm going to turn this so I can actually get to this other one a little easier. Okay, so take this. Carefully install that, bottom it out. And same thing here. It's hard for me to do it sideways like this and keep my head out of frame, so that's why I'm bumbling around a little bit. It's not really this hard, it's just trying to keep my noggin out of frame. Good grief, there we go. And then boom, there you go. That's all there is to it. Now here is my first thought on these that I want to share. Now these are supposed to be friction fit pins. However, that is not the case. Some of them will stick, but a lot of them will fall out. So in working with the other set that I did, when you pick these things up, you know, manipulate them or whatever, pins will just fall out. They do not stick. So it's important to glue them somehow. Now, I would recommend, you can use whatever you want, but I would recommend not using thin CA glue, because it is so thin that it can, through capillary action, suck through the pins and stick everything together, and then you no longer have flexible tracks. So a gel type or even PVA glue, just a very little tiny bit somewhere on the edge, just enough to hold that pin in place, and you're good to go. But I'll get to that later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble a segment of this track and then come back and show you what I'm talking about. Quick like, so here's another example of the little artifacts that are left over from the printing. Pop, pop, ready to go. All right, here is the first section completed. So let's see what happens when I tilt it sideways like this. Yep, see there, one just fell out. And that wasn't very much working at all. That was just the vibration of this dragging across it, and it fell out. See, this one here is starting to come out. So what my point being is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. But go in knowing that these are not friction fit. And again, I built two types of the T Reax tracks. One set was for a Panzer II, and then this set right here for the Jagdtiger with the Porsche suspension. Now, it's only two sets of tracks, but two dramatically different types of tracks. And I had the same thing happen. So I could probably say with pretty good certainty that this would be a problem across the board regardless of the type of track. Now, if you've had experience otherwise, please put it in the comments section down below. Let me know what type of track they were, and you know, just so I know. But they're not friction fit. But again, it's not a deal breaker. You know, it can be dealt with, and that's what I'm going to do next. All right, so what I'm going to do here is using, as you can see, this is some thick gel type stuff. So this is what I'm going to use to glue these pins in place, and I'm just going to put just a little bit along the edge. Doesn't take much, I don't think. I don't want it to be all clumped up and looking dumb, but it does need some glue. Now, you know what? I just thought of something. What I could do, so I could pull the pins out just a little bit like this. And then put a little dab in between the pin and the link. That way it might not show up quite as much, if you get my meaning. Whoops. As you can see, I'm using my high-tech CA applicator, which is a sewing needle with the eye cut in half. Okay, so I'm just going to continue on with this. Then we'll come back and take a look and see if I maintain the workable integrity of these shear tracks. Okay, so here we go. Looks like I got them glued in on that side and on that side, and nothing seems to be sticking. All right, success. So there you have it. All I got to do now is do some more segments to the appropriate amount. I think in this case it's like 95 or 96, whichever fits. So there we go. There's a segment there. Looks pretty good. So with the completion of these, now for some thoughts. First, as I mentioned, don't take the word of others. I mean, if you get a set and they're all frictions fit as far as the pins go, that's great. Go with it. But for me, at least on these, it's definitely a case of making sure they're secured with some thick gel CA glue. So how do they compare to the kit tracks? Well, let's just do a quick visual here. I can already tell you that the T Reax tracks look much better. The detail is way sharper, and they just have an overall better look to them. The, for example, the recesses here on this compared to this, the cleats, or whatever you want to call these raised little portions here on the T Reax tracks are way more pronounced, a lot sharper. You may not be able to see much there, but the detail on the inner part, it's about the same, I think. I mean, a little sharper on this, of course, but, you know, these are much better looking tracks. Let's just go ahead and say it. Now, the big question is it worth paying the extra money for these to replace these. That's up to the individual. If you want some really sharp looking tracks with a little bit of a fussy build to it, by all means get these. But the proof will be once they're installed and how they look after they have dirt, mud, paint, everything else applied. At that point, I don't think it's going to make a real huge amount of difference. It might, but it might not. But we'll see once I get these installed. So if you want to see how they look after everything's installed and painted and weathered, then I would say maybe subscribe to my channel, or at least watch for the remaining videos on the build of the Dragon 1/35 scale Jagdtiger Porsche Production type. So I will put a link at the end of this video to the intro to that kit, so you can click on it and then just follow along as I release stuff, or wait till the last episode where I actually show how everything looks and talk about my final thoughts on the kit. And as a quick explanation why I'm going to have two different kinds of tracks on this thing, well, when I did the first run of these for the other side and I used a liquid CA instead of a thick CA, it rendered them useless. They were just all stuck. Try and bend them, it just breaks the pins and they fall apart. So that is why there's two separate kinds of tracks. And in hindsight, it's actually kind of a good idea, since I am doing a comparison here. So should work out in the end, and once everything gets painted and all that, it should look fine. So anyway, that is it for this review and build demonstration and thoughts on the T Reax Jagdtiger Porsche suspension tracks. If you like this video, maybe hit the subscribe button so you can watch other of my video series. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, hints, tips, concerns, anything like that, put them in the comments section down below. If you've had experience with T Reax tracks, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on them. Are they worth it? Are they not worth it? Or does it just matter? And especially if you've used different varieties, let me know how those worked out for you. Like if you used the T Reax for a different vehicle and it's a different type of track. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought. So anyway, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.